Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, we'll be talking about the fall storm that I've been talking about for the past 2 days. There's going to be two really, it seems at this point, one after the other that are going to develop some pretty fall-like characteristics. And what I mean by that is there's certain storms in the fall that occur that are much stronger, well more developed, and if it was a bit colder, they would have snow. They're not as scattered and disoriented as summer storms usually are, with just waves of thunderstorms and whatnot. So I'll be showing you these two systems from the perspective of three different weather models. This is basically, these weather models are used to forecast these storms. They all have slight disagreements, but they do generally agree on the storm system. So I'll just let you kind of decide on your own what you think from this. I'll present to you the data, the evidence, and we'll go from there. So before we get into this, if you guys are into the weather, hobbyist, enthusiast, or just like getting updated with forecasts, and you like this channel, right, consider subscribing. If you obviously don't like this channel, then don't subscribe, and you could also give it a thumbs up if you do obviously like it. Any comments or concerns, good, bad, neutral, leave them down below. I answer or get to most comments, and yeah, I plan on doing that on every single video. All right, so let's start talking about this. So first off, I want to show you the European model, Ecmwf. So notice right now we do have Tropical Storm Fred. It did make landfall as a decently strong tropical storm, and notice that as it pushes forward across the southeast, it does have a lot of moisture that rings up way ahead of it. So it's not just with the circulation, it's kind of impacting a lot of the eastern and southeastern U.S. with some showers and storms, right? So that's definitely going to be definitely a story, right? A weather story. But notice what we have going on across British Columbia and into Alberta. We have a good batch of rainfall that is occurring, and actually we do have some blue colors. Yes, that is snow across the higher elevations, the extremely high elevations. And as we push these storms forward into time, into September and October, this snow will continue to, kind of sloping down into the lower elevations, and eventually once it gets cold enough, out into the prairies or plains, depending on which country you kind of refer to. Canada is usually prairies, the U.S. is more of a plains. And notice that as we push this forward, this doesn't just die off. Look, Montana gets decent amounts, Idaho, Wyoming. So this is very important. A lot of the areas here are in a historic drought, one that has been affecting them for a very, very long time. The summer has been just kind of a cherry on top, really, putting a lot of areas in dire need of rain. And this storm will be doing that, delivering a lot of rainfall for the West United States, and really avoiding, unfortunately, Oregon and Seattle, but definitely Wyoming, potentially Utah, Colorado, southern Canada getting lots of rain. I do want to say that while this system is starting to take shape here into Thursday and Wednesday and really this whole week, we do also have the remnants of Fred, and this will move up the northeast coast, dropping quite a bit of rain. That won't be to do with the system I'm referring to, but definitely a system nonetheless, which would again be Fred. Or was Fred. So notice North Dakota, right, southern Canada, seeing several bouts of precipitation, several bouts of rain, and this continues. And look, by late Thursday into Friday, right, we do have a blossoming area of precipitation and several waves moving across Manitoba, Ontario, Saskatchewan. Good, decent amounts of rain to North Dakota, Nebraska, South Dakota, into Missouri. Notice that it does tap into some of that tropical moisture. And as we push it forward, look at that. I mean, just a lot of rain potential. And this is where we start seeing that system take on a more fall-like characteristic. It's not as just scattered, disoriented like we've been seeing in the summer, or, even with this tropical storm, just these random shower chances, right? It's more consolidated into a larger circulation. And notice 992 millibars, that's definitely a sizable storm. We have that cold front draping down into Wisconsin, Illinois. We'll be going through Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois around Saturday and into early Sunday across the more eastern Great Lakes regions and into the northeast eventually. But look how circular that system gets. Look how strong that is. I mean, 977. That is a strong system. Definitely some powerful winds behind that. And notice, as I mentioned, we do have a warm front right there. We do have a cold front developing. So just a classic low pressure, a specimen that again is more often seen in fall and winter. I do want to say that this system, by the way, again, it will be mainly out of here with its impacts by this Sunday. And right in here, again, there will be a lot of warm air, but behind it, there will be some chilly air. And if we were to stay at hour 138, right, and we were to take a look at the 2-meter temperatures, again, notice much cooler up here, much cooler out behind a warm front, and in between, very, very warm air. But behind it, cool air. So, that's good. A lot of folks here are going to get some relief. So just from this first system, it looks as if the rain amounts could be pretty decent, to say the least. I mean, look at that. That is generally generous amounts. 5-6 inches potentially. That is a bit too much potentially, right? But North Dakota, South Dakota, maybe a bit into South Dakota, decent amounts. Montana, Wyoming, really good beneficial amounts. Utah as well. They're stuck in a very bad drought. And obviously along the Northeast, quite a bit as well to do with that tropical storm Fred. Very, very heavy amounts of rain potentially. So that's not as good of a thing. But I do want to show you that kind of avoiding or going back to the topic of the storms. Notice it does continue adding on with moisture here. And notice I've just filled in a bit more here. And that's because there will be continued storms even after that one that I showed you. And they will be more developed and more of fall-like of characteristic. So notice that if we were to put this forward, look what happened across southern Canada into the northwest. A very similar setup. We do have a bit of snow, we do have a bit of rain, and that low pressure starts forming. Lots of bouts of precip even out ahead of it into Monday and into Tuesday across Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois. Again, you could see all over the place. Those are a bit hard to predict where exactly these little bands will go through. But overall, there's our system. You could see not as strong and generally a bit further to the south, but definitely producing lots of rain with that cold front and with the energy it kind of absorbs. So that's our second one that I was referring to at the beginning of the video. Now, let's take a glance at the GFS. Its most latest year model goes out to 150 hours, right? And it's because it gets released at around 5 p.m., 4:30, and it's 5:20 here. So I'll show you the older model run that is a few hours older when it comes to that second storm, as this one doesn't go out far enough to encompass that second system. So notice there's Tropical Storm Fred. There we have the snow across the mountains and that rain, right? Notice as it pushes into Montana, Idaho, it does take a quite a bit of time to kind of develop and push out. But once it does, look at those winds. Those are strong. They blow from the southwest to the north. Obviously, that's a moisture transport. It's a kind of like a highway. Notice the GFS doesn't develop as strong of a systems, but it does develop a cold front nonetheless, and a lot of precipitation going back and forth across that region. Notice southern Canada, it definitely shows a bit more into Saskatchewan and in Manitoba rather than just Ontario and Manitoba like the European previous model I showed you. Notice a bit more rain into Illinois, Indiana, Iowa with that different kind of structure of that cold front, but it too starts showing signs of more activity even following that, and quite arguably a bit more abrupt, kind of a bit more it's a bit less of a break. Notice this one pulls away on Saturday. Sunday, the European has it still around on Sunday across Quebec, and it waits a few days, but the GFS just right away puts out another system. It's smaller, but it starts developing those characteristics. Obviously, no matter what happens, really, it seems the rain amounts will be plentiful across that region. You could see that the GFS shows, again, 1, 2, in some areas 2, maybe even 3 inches of rain, especially where that low pressure kind of stalls out for. Notice Montana, widespread rains, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, and into portions, obviously, of the south where that Tropical Storm Fred does occur. Now, let's go back to the model run prior so we could take a look at what it shows out ahead. Notice that regarding any changes from model run to model run, it stayed consistent. The GFS with that formation of that system, it shows that second one right afterwards on Monday into Sunday. But even beyond that system, there's another one. And look, it's a bit weaker, but it does still have like a circulation up there, a little bit of a cold front. At this point, this is next Thursday, so it's rather far out. But notice that it does keep things active up there. And it does eventually form a very, very long cold front, very widespread, and keeps things rainy across the south as well. So regardless of what way you put it, it seems to be active. The GFS hasn't been favoring these storms having as much circulation with that first system. As you saw, it's just more like scattered rain shields rather than the European that develops more of that circulation. So again, the details of that are really going to change. Still expect some rain, and the stronger the system is, then maybe potentially there is greater chances of cooler air, and that's kind of what the GFS and European don't really agree on. But otherwise, really, the forecast stays the same, that quite a bit of rain is on its way. Notice I did click on the snow because there could be decent areas seeing or decent amount of snow across a decent area of real estate. It's not just a few speckles. It's at this point, vast ranges across British Columbia, Alberta, and into even potentially Montana. So maybe even pockets into Yellowstone, the higher plateaus. I wanted to take a look at the precip quickly, just to show you what it shows in the 384 hours. Again, this is that's quite a few days, and it does show again an active pattern. And the difference between this and what we've been seeing this whole summer and spring is that, well, a lot of this rain isn't just to the south and east. It's across the northern plains, southern Canada, into British Columbia, Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and into Ontario. So that is definitely beneficial. Canada has been in a very, very bad drought. If you recall, they have had horrible heat, little rain, so this will definitely prove useful. Let's take a glance at the Canadian. So let's just start off at the precip outlook since we started. I don't like using this model as a precip outlook. I think if you watch this channel, you've heard me say that before. I don't know. It just doesn't do as good of a job showing the precipitation amounts, but it does do a good job with its simulated radar, or what it does with the storm system. So that's why I still like to look at it. Doesn't show as much for the south. It does show obviously quite a bit across the northeast where Fred takes its track. Midwest, decent rains, not really drying out, and in northern plains also seeing decent amounts of rain. Again, in some areas, rather heavy. And the one model, the Canadian, is different from the others. It does show quite a bit more into Washington. And if you recall, just from a few seconds ago, the GFS did not show as much. Even very, very far out, if I recall correctly, does not show as much, and as much across Washington. It would be nice to see it though. A lot of those folks need it arguably more than them across the plains, as they have been seeing, again, heat and very dry weather. But regardless, at least it's at least someone's getting relief that needs it. Notice that across British Columbia, Alberta, the Canadian does put out a bit of snow. So I showed you this model's precip already, right? The one that I just showed you about. Now let's take a look at its simulated radar. There's Fred across the northeast Pennsylvania, getting some very heavy rain potentially into late Wednesday, Thursday. Wyoming, Montana, Utah, Colorado, all into the next few days, seeing decent amounts of rain. Finally pulling into the Dakotas and plains by late Thursday, early Friday, and it has been already occurring across Canada ever since Tuesday, if we're talking as Friday being the current, right? But obviously this is a few days out. But look, right there, a few thunderstorm clusters, definitely a bit of rain for quite a few folks. Again, not as strong of a system as what the European shows, but it does show a cold front and a formation of a system that does bear characteristics that we haven't seen the past few storms, with just widespread showers and storms. Definitely well more organized. And then look what happens as we put this even forward into our past hour 150. If you recall, the GFS and European both showed a second system. So does a Canadian, but it keeps it further back. Notice, stirring right there across British Columbia, dumping decent amounts of snow, potentially feet of snow across the mountains before it finally moves on and does bring some more precip into the U.S. and southern Canada. But it is a bit stretched out and it is a bit weaker, mainly just a cold front affecting the United States and southern Canada, and the actual circulation stays a bit further to the north. So again, these model differences, they differ on that first storm, let alone the second one, so we'll just have to wait and see. But notice, if we were to look at the North American continent, we do have these 540 lines starting to take shape a bit more further to the south, a bit more vigorous, and they'll be coming down further and further south in the next month and a half, and that's normal. It's winter's on its way, whether you like it or not. Fall is almost in the air. You can almost feel fall. If I go outside of my garden, it's there's just certain things like the powdery mildew on the pumpkin plants, the crickets, and the cooler air breeze that blows once in a while that makes it feel more of a fall scenario rather than July or June. So that's definitely something that's noticeable. And that's basically it. I could quickly show you what the GFS ensemble, so many different models, and what they think of the temperatures. Let's see if they have, there we go, 2 meter temperature anomalies. This is basically taking your average temperature that you would expect for August 16th and showing you where it's going to be warmer in the red or blue, where it's going to be cooler. And notice that as we put this forward, obviously we'll get pretty cool behind that large system that develops, and with that cloud cover across the west, that is good news. They've been dealing with a lot of that heat, and notice it does get get very, very warm between that cold front and warm front of that system. Again, it's a bit spread out according to these ensembles because some of them, again, probably have different tracks for this storm and its positioning of its fronts. But notice in the long range overall, rather warm. There could be a few cool shots if they do occur. It's mainly affecting the Great Lakes and kind of staying to the north, maybe the northern plains, the northeast, maybe not going that far to the south. Some models have been indicating that, but it hasn't garnished many supportive ensembles. Here's a European. Again, look at that. A pretty cool air mass was occurring on Friday across the northern U.S. Slid in here on Saturday, Sunday. This is current time. Notice it's warm back across those locations to the north. Decently chilly and normal across the central United States, right? You can see those blue colors. And as we push this forward into time, notice there's that little cool off from that system, and there's that little warm up. But this doesn't go as far as previously thought, and just kind of meanders across the northern plains. But definitely provides relief in terms of temperatures to folks that need it a lot. So that's definitely going to be good. But yeah, I mean, look at that heat wave right there into the next several hours. Next several days across the plains. Definitely something that they'll have to pay before that system comes in and cools things off. So again, I would say the European has the best handle on this. Notice right there, all that rain, all that precipitation. I think it will be developing into a rather strong system. And yeah, it looks active. Potentially, again, another system following that. I do want to quickly mention that the previous model of the European from 12 hours ago, I want to show you it just to show you that this isn't a cherry-picked model I picked from my rhetoric or whatnot. Notice that it does have a lot of, again, support, right? I mean, very similar. It was a bit maybe well-organized with the previous model run, but nonetheless, the track stays the same. The precip amounts seem similar as well. And notice it continued to show a active pattern. This is the model run from 24 hours ago. So again, at 24 hours, and you can see some things have changed, a bit less precip, maybe a bit earlier out. It has, again, a bit delayed this storm event. And notice, there it is. That's similar to what we're looking at right now with our current model, which came out just a few hours ago. So the consistency is key. You know, trend is your friend. And yeah, look at that. I mean, very similar. And again, the precip amounts from that are rather high, but that is what folks here want to hear. You know, this won't cause major flooding most likely, but definitely more of a relief to the drought-stricken areas. So yeah, that is that. The northern plains, the Great Lakes getting affected by that storm system. Southwest, decent rains from the monsoon and a bit from help from that storm. And across the south, obviously, Tropical Storm Fred. Notice, I mean, for example, Atlanta, potentially 5-6 inches into potentially northern Pennsylvania and New York. Also, maybe even some double-digit amounts according to this European model. So I know they've been wet. They've had a lot of rain, so stay safe. There could be quite a bit more headed your way from that system, Fred. So that could definitely cause some flooding. All right, that is basically it for today's video. This is a UK model, right? And notice it shows, again, heavy rain, very heavy rain across the northeast here, and decent rains across the plains as well. So, yeah, stay safe, guys, and I'll catch you all on the next episode. See ya. Bye.